Hello and welcome to this session. So in all our previous classes, we have added a constant and we try to modify the constant by dropping an existing constant and then adding a new constraint with the changes, right? Whatever the changes that we want to add for the data. So that is all fine. So now I have created a table called as employee, correct? And I have some data here and I have some constants been added here, right? So right now there is no data here, but we have the constants here, correct? Now, when somebody else has created the constant or you yourself have created a constant, after few days or few months, how will you know what are the constants that are available, right? Where is that data? So this about the constant stored, right? So this is basically called metadata. Metadata basically tells you about the data, like in this table, right? What are the constants we have? What are the null conditions we have? All these are called as metadata. It's a very important concept. It basically tells you how about your data, right? So whether they are null, whether they're not null, right? What are the checks that we have? So here, how do you know that what is metadata for this? So we can do something called as description that we have learned, right? But with the description, it will basically give you like if it is not null or what are the column names and what are the data types, right? But what about constant? So this data is stored in different tables. So Oracle provides us with the specific tables that stores the metadata. Like for constant, they have a separate table. For some other objects, they have a separate table. So we'll see that as we learn the concept. But since we already know what the constraint is and we have created some constants, so we need to identify where the constraints are stored. So these constraints are stored in a table called as all underscore constraints. So all underscore constraints store all the data related to constant. Whatever the data it is, if you have a constant, it will get stored here. So if you execute this, you can see there's bunch of data. So the owner is like system admin. Like when you install when you install the software, right, database, there will be certain data that gets installed, pre-installed. So these are related to the system owner, right? Now our owner is basically this. So if you remember, when we created this, we given the user as this, right? So that is basically our schema. So we could basically filter out on this. So I can use a where clause and I'll say owner for this. This would basically give me all the data related to my user, my current user. So where is the filter logic that we are applying, right? So this is basically to filter out the data. So we are seeing a use case of this, right? Now, if you see, right, these are all the data. There's a lot of junk data as well. Now, if you look at this owner, this is a constraint name, the constraint type, and we have the table as name. So let's also put on table. So instead of this, I'll put table name, right? So it's easier. It will only have less data here, right? So employee, EMP. So you can see here we only have four records. So owner, we have the constant. This is a constant name, right? And this is a constant type. P is primary key is unique. C is check. R is reference, referential contract, right? Foreign key. And we have the table name. So the condition like salary is greater than 10,000, salary is greater than 1,000. All these things are available here, right? And if you look at this, right? Status. So this is an important thing, right? So the status basically tells you whether the constant is enabled or not, right? See, you can enable the constant, you can disable the constant. So when a constant is enabled, that means all that you are all the rules that you have for the constraints, they are valid. Okay, but you can also disable that constant also. But before disabling this, let's insert this data and I'll show you what I mean. So insert into EMP, right? So the columns that we have, let me check this columns, employee ID, e-name, salary, department number, gender, so values. So let's say one, employee name, John, salary is 2,300, department number 10, gender is M. Okay, so I'm going to execute this. Integrity constraint violated parent key not found. So I think we did not add data into the department table. Select start from department. So let's check that. It says that the integrity concept foreign key is not. If we don't have any data here, we are trying to add a department number which do not belong here. So we need to ensure that the department data is here. So insert into department, department number, department name. So I'm just going to add just one value here, just to ensure that the foreign key relationship is not violated. So yeah, one row is inserted. If I check this data, you will see that this particular data is there. Now I go back and insert this data. So one row is inserted, right? So you can select this data here and you will see that one row. Now if I go back and insert this data again, all right? Or let me just add department number 20 here, okay? And depart 10, right? So John 1. So if I insert this data, we have just seen, right? We have a integrity constraint which is on this department number. The foreign key is violated. So we are saying the foreign key is violated because you look at this, right? Let me just copy this FKNO, right? So let's me put this here. So if I check this, if I execute this, I will see that what is the name FKDNO. See FKDNO, right? So this name, if I go here all the way, it says enabled, right? Because it is enabled, it is not allowing you to kind of insert the data outside of this. So what I can do here is like I can disable this. How do I disable, right? So for this, I will have to use the alter statement, correct? So one way is basically you can drop, right? But sometimes, it's easier we just disable it. That way the entry will be here, right? Alter table. So we'll say, what is this? Department number, right? Alter table. So we'll disable it on employees. Alter table, employee, right? And what we want to do here, so we wanted to disable the this one, the constant, right? Uh, Alter table name. Then we'll say disable this constraint. We want to disable this constraint. Okay, so let me go ahead and execute this. Okay, the altered, if I go back and check this, so FK, right? So over to the right, you will see that. Where is it? Yeah, enable. Yeah, you see disabled. Now that the constant is disabled, so you can go ahead and execute this. And even though 20 is not part of the department, but we have disabled it, so it will get inserted. Okay. Now, how do you enable it back? Right. So, very simple concept here. Let me copy this. Now here, instead of this, you will base instead of disable, you will say enable. But this will fail, right? Because we already inserted a value which is actually not there, right? So we already inserted 20. So let me execute this. See, an alter constant fail because the table has child records. So now what we need to do is we need to delete that particular record. So delete from employee where, okay, so we need to delete just one record, right? So we will use a where clause. So we will use where uh, employee id is equal to, this is the value that we want to delete, right? So we want to delete this record. Okay, I'm going to delete this record. So one row is deleted, and now I can go ahead and enable the constant. So see, table is altered, and let's go and check the constraints. So if you go and check the constraint here, so you will see here, right? It is basically enabled. So it is enabled back, right? So this is how we can basically enable or disable the constraints. We have seen how we can drop the constraints. And again, everything depends upon this one, the data. If you don't have the data, then there are no problems. Like you can add the constant, delete the constant, drop the constant, whatever you want. But if you want to uh, add or modify or drop the constants based on the data, then you need to check like what data we have, and based on that only you can do it. And even if you try to do something, like if you want try to disable the constraint or enable the constant, if the data does not support, then it will throw an error, and you can read it and you will understand it, and there's not an issue. You can just go back and fix it. All right. Okay. Now let's do one thing. um, See, we have enabled the foreign key, right? So now let's try to drop table department. Okay. So let me just drop this table. Okay. So this drop table is not working. Why it is not working? Let's understand. See, it says unique or primary key is a table referenced by the foreign key. Now you are trying to drop this department table, but this department table basically is referenced by the employee table. So the employee table is referencing the department table. Then how can you drop the table? So if you want to drop this table, you also have to drop all the cascade, all the constraints. So only if you drop the constraints, then that link will be broken. First, you need to break the link between the employee and department. Then you can drop the table. If you are dropping the table when there is a link, it will not allow, because then it will be problem for the employee table, right? So now what we can do is, here you can go ahead and drop all the referential integrity checks, right? So you can drop the reference key, you can drop the primary key, and then you can come back and drop. But an easier way is, you can basically, along with the table, you can also drop the constant. So you will say cascade constraints. So what it basically do, it will drop all the constraints related, the referential constraint related to this table along with the table. So now see, department table is dropped. So if I can go back and I can check here, you can see that that record is dropped, right? So that record is no longer there. So it has dropped the table. Along with that, it has also dropped the referential integrity, which is basically your foreign key. So cascade constraint will basically drop all the referential constraints that you have attached with this. That way you are breaking the link as well as you are dropping the table. All right. Okay, so this is what I wanted to discuss in this sessions. Now we have looked at all the available constraints. We have added the constraints. We have modified the constant. We have dropped the constraints. We looked at when there is data, how the constraints will behave. When there is no data, how the constraints will behave. What are the common scenarios? What are the common errors that we get? How we read the error? How we debugged it? And how we are able to make changes so that the statement execute perfectly, right? So we have seen all this. So this is a very important concept. Now from the next sessions, what we will do is we will apply all these constraints to our tables. So in our project, when we designed the Amazon tables, we use a single table, right? Now we mentioned like, oh, this single table, we had so many problems because, primary key, unique data, we need to insert unique data. It is allowing us to insert all the random data. We need to ensure that only certain values are getting inserted. So to prepare the tables here, so we need to understand certain concept which was constant. That is why we have gone through the constraints topics, and we have taken some random tables. We have taken some random data and everything. You would have also observed that I have not committed the changes, right? So committed basically means whatever the data that I want, it will get saved permanent. But because I know like these are temporary tables that I am using, I will drop the tables, I'll recreate the tables. I didn't basically commit it. Okay. Now, going forward, because we are going to use the project tables, we will basically create design the tables, use a concept that we have learned, and we will commit the changes because we want to use the data going forward. All right.